Football season is almost here, but imagine if the NFL announced something like this.
Effective immediately, football is now available only to those who completed Form 17B preseason fandom declaration.
What?
Only fans that declared their team loyalty before the season started are allowed to watch the Super Bowl.
But what if you're like a casual fan?
No football for you.
Nothing for you!
Undecided?
Locked out.
But what if you just moved and you're considering supporting your new home?
Sorry.
That would be ridiculous.
Totally ridiculous. And yet, that's basically how American elections work.
Okay, explain.
In most elections, the real contest is not the general election in November. It's actually the party primary that's held months before. That is where the candidates are chosen, that's where the field gets narrowed, and that's where the teams are picked.
So the primary is like the preseason?
Exactly. In many states, you have to be registered with a political party to vote in that party's primary. And in 16 states, independents or unaffiliated voters can be completely shut out.
Hold on. So millions of voters help pay for the elections, they live under the laws, they deal with the consequences, but they can't participate in the election that often determines the winner?
That is the problem.
That feels like telling half the fans they can only show up to the game after it's basically over.
Yeah, and worse yet, we don't have many fans showing up to begin with. In 2024, just 7% of voters effectively elected 87% of Congress.
So what's the alternative?
Open primaries. More specifically, all candidate primaries.
Sounds cool, but what does that mean?
One ballot, every candidate, every voter. Everyone gets the same ballot. No party gate, no separate stadium entrance. No, you picked the wrong jersey, so you can't come in.
That sounds way more simple, but does it actually change elections?
Yes, and this is where it gets interesting.
Show me.
States with all candidate primaries are 3 times less likely to end up with a general election where only one candidate is running. And they're about twice as likely to have a competitive general election, which is one decided by 10 points or fewer.
So fewer automatic wins and more competitive contests.
Exactly. All candidate primaries make it much more likely that a voter gets a real choice, and candidates have to stay accountable to a much broader slice of the electorate.
So the game actually becomes a real game.
All right. We got ourselves a game.
Yep. More voters, more competition, and more accountability.
Great, but do people actually show up when you open up the process?
They do. In 2022, national primary turnout averaged about 21%. But in all candidate primary states, turnout was much higher. 37% in Alaska, 35% in Washington, and 29% in California.
So when you let more people participate, more people participate.
Yes, and not just participate.
Wrong side! Left side! Wrong side! Left side!
In all candidate primary states, voters are much more likely to cast what researchers call a meaningful vote. In recent state house elections, voters in all candidate primary states were 2.3 times more likely to cast a meaningful vote compared to voters in party primary states.
So it's not just more voting, it's more voting that matters. But here's my question. Is this just changing elections, or does it actually change things?
That's the big question. And new research suggests the effects may go beyond elections.
How far beyond?
So this time I wrote down some stats. Let's start here on offense.
Recent research from Dr. Rich Barton, a senior fellow at the United America Institute, looked at 14 different societal measures. Things like public safety, education, income, and other quality of life indicators. States with all candidate primaries perform better on 9 of the 14 indicators and worse on none of them.
Wait, so you're saying states with open elections have better real-world outcomes?
That's what the preliminary research suggests.
This sounds huge.
It's important, but we should be careful. It doesn't prove the election system alone caused these outcomes, but we can say that these reforms do not make states worse off. Really, what it suggests is that reform can help create the conditions for better problem solving, more collaborative governance, and coalition building.
But why would that happen?
We can do it together.
Because incentives matter. If a candidate only has to win over a small, intensely partisan slice of the electorate, they can survive by playing to that slice. That can have an impact on who runs, how they campaign, and how they govern once they're in office.
So the loudest fans in one tiny section of the stadium.
Yes, One study found that newly elected members of Congress from open all-candidate primary states are up to 18 percentage points less extreme than comparable members from closed-party primary states.
So it's not just about who gets on the ballot.
No, it's about who politicians are accountable to.
So the system makes it so you only can win by appealing to the fringes.
Are you not entertained?
Right. In much of the country, a really tiny share of voters effectively decides who ends up on your general election ballot.
And everyone else shows up to choose between the options that small group picked.
That is the system.
That makes no sense. But what about in open primary states?
One ballot, all candidates, and every voter.
Sold. So simple.
It is, and it changes the incentives from the very beginning.
So the football version is don't let a few superfans decide the Super Bowl before the rest of the country even gets into the stadium.
And make the candidates play for the whole crowd.
Let everyone into the game.